Hi, I'm Gary White,
And I'm Yvonne McNary.
here on Central Kentucky Talks. And today we're going to be talking about dogs and what to expect when adopting a dog, particularly. And we have a lady who's an expert in that. She's written the book, actually. Her name is Diane Rose Solomon, who's written What to Expect When Adopting a Dog. Hi, and hello, Diane.
Hi, Yvonne and Gary. How are you?
Very
Fine,
well.
thank you.
So I think when we were getting ready for this interview, you were taking care of your dogs. How many dogs do you have?
At the moment, I have two, and but they're kind of, I call them feisty Fidos, so it kind of feels like I have more than two.
What kind of dogs?
Well, my littler one, he's about 30 pounds, and it's so hard to tell, but he looks like part terrier, like maybe Jack Russell shaped size, and part whippet or greyhound, like a small dog, but like lean, really fast kind of dog, and maybe some Chihuahua too. So who knows? And then my bigger dog is a little more distinctive looking. He looks like a Labrador and a Pit Bull, but I've met other dogs that are similar looking to him, where they say that they're a completely different mix. So heck if I know.
You just love them, right?
Yes.
Just love them.
Exactly. So tell us about your book, What to Expect When Adopting a Dog.
Well, for me, it's really exciting to be able to share it with the world, and it came about because I actually wrote some children's books also about rescue a number of years ago. Let's say, call it 4 years ago, was my first book called JJ the American Street Dog and How He Came to Live in Our House. And when I started going into schools and speaking to kids in classes about adoption and really compassion and kindness and responsibility as the themes behind the book, I became known in my community as the dog expert. And so people that I knew would call me and ask me questions about dog-related stuff and adoption-related stuff and care. And I realized that if the people that I knew were asking me these questions, then what about the thousands of people in the world that I don't know that have the same or similar questions? And I had all this information because I had all this experience, and I put it all into the book.
Fantastic. So how many dogs have you adopted over the years?
It's probably like 4 main dogs, and we fostered a couple along the way and picked up another couple along the way that we couldn't keep and found homes for. We tend to get dogs that require a lot of attention, and I have kids too, so we used to have dogs and cats, but we're just a dog family now, dogs and kids.
Okay. So when you're adopting a dog, what should you first consider before actually bringing the dog into your family?
Well, one of my mantras, I've got a few, is responsibility. Are you ready for the responsibility? And, with the holidays just behind us, it was so important for me to share, and I think, people in the dog world heard this a lot. Only get a dog if everybody's on board. Getting a dog as a gift for somebody is generally a poor choice. You want everybody, and sometimes in the family, somebody's kind of reluctant, but they come around eventually. But you want everybody to be ready for the responsibility because it is a responsibility. It's a new family member. There's care that's involved. There's costs that are involved. Where do you live? In some areas there's still breed-specific legislation where certain breeds of dogs aren't allowed. You want to think all of these things through before you go embark on a journey, because it's a lifelong journey of their life, their entire life. It's not that long in comparison to ours, but it's their life, and we owe it to them, especially if they've been in a shelter situation, to give them a good life and a loving home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So most of the dogs that you have been rescues?
All of them have been. And that was quite by accident. 21 years ago, or 22 years ago at this point, we were going to go to a breeder. I didn't know anything about animal adoption then. It wasn't that popular of a concept back then. And so we were going to go buy a golden retriever. And I had just started researching breeders. And I love Goldens. I mean, they're just incredible, beautiful dogs. And we were looking at breeders, and a friend of ours found a puppy on a field and called us, knowing that we were thinking about getting a dog. And he said he can't keep this dog, but would be considerate. And you should have seen my body language. I was like, no, I don't want a mangy dog from the streets. I want to go pick out my perfect golden puppy. And my husband, it turned out, had a way bigger heart than I did. He's like, well, we can look at the puppy. I'll go look. And so he went and took a look at the puppy, and he said, he's really cute. I said, fine, I'll take a look. And he brought the puppy home the next morning, or the next afternoon, after he took a look at the dog at work. And I fell in love immediately. And he wasn't anything like a golden retriever. He was a mutt. Who knows what he was? He was like maybe a shepherd mix with maybe a little lab and some Sheltie, something like that. But I fell in love, and it's when I learned, or realized at least, that it's not the breed or the size or the shape of the dog. It's the dogness of the dog, is what I call it. It's their soul, just them being so fabulously dog. And it's that point that I got more involved in animal rescue and learned what was going on in the industry and how many animals were being euthanized every year in the shelter. And it broke my heart at the time. There was between 12 and 16 million adoptable pets being euthanized in the shelters. And I said, well, this is unacceptable, and what can I do to help change that? And I became a certified humane education specialist through Humane Society. They have a university. Okay. And then I started writing books. And now the numbers are significantly better, not due to my writing, due to a lot of education that's gone on from some wonderful organizations and spay and neuter and all really important things that have gone on over the past 20 some odd years. So now it's much more widespread, and many more people are aware of rescue, and because there still are millions of dogs and cats that are in the shelters that need homes.
Absolutely. We do a segment each week with what's called Barktown Rescue, which is a no-kill shelter in one of our counties that to make sure that they get adopted as well. Yeah.
Now, what about the age of the adopters? Do you have kids who want to come in and adopt dogs? And what do you think is a good age or a good starting age for kids?
You mean when there's kids in the family, or you're talking about like young adults?
Kids in the family, want a dog, and should you wait until they're older, or is there a certain age group that you think starts to become more responsible?
Well, that's a really good question. It's also a loaded question because I think that there's no right or wrong age. I think that it's family by family and child by child and dog by dog, because the right dog in the wrong family or the wrong dog in the right family, it doesn't matter how old the kid is. There has to be a huge element of responsibility on the adult's part to be educated about body language, to educate their children. And if you've got a really little kid, you might want to know in advance that your dog is a really gentle dog. And even still, I mean, one of the examples I give in my book is my mom has this really sweet Shih Tzu. And when my daughter was little, she chased her into the crate when we weren't looking. And it was our fault that my daughter got bitten by this little sweet dog who would never hurt anybody, but because we weren't paying attention to the dog's body language. The dog just needed to get away. Fortunately, it was not a big bite, and it was a small dog, and we got lucky, and it was a big warning and a big wake-up call for me how diligent you need to be around even the smallest, sweetest dog. But, you think you're going to wait till your child is older and more responsible to help out. Well, from a safety standpoint, my kids, I feel pretty safe with them, and they know how to approach dogs in our home and outside of the home. But, when they say, well, let's get a dog because I'll be able to help take care of it, my 16-year-old, who is very capable of walking my dogs, feeding my dogs, but she's never here because she's 16 years old. She's always off with her friends or at work or something. So that's kind of out the window, So you have to be aware that you're going to be doing a lot of the work and a lot of the caretaking and a lot of the educating.
So when you are planning to adopt, how do you determine what breed of dog would be right for you or your family?
There's a couple of ways to approach it. Some people are really dead set on a certain breed, which is awesome. Maybe you grew up with a breed, and you know their personality, and it works for you. That's really cool. As far as being able to adopt that breed, there are breed rescues for just about every breed. I know that there's some really obscure breeds, and there aren't rescues for them, but most common breeds have rescue groups if you can't find that particular type of dog in the shelter. If there is still a certain breed or a certain type of breed, meaning maybe a mix of that breed, it's really easy to do research on different breeds. There's a ton of information about each breed, and every breed has a really distinct personality, and the pros and the cons, and you have to consider your lifestyle. Are you a big hiker? Do you want to be able to take the dog hiking with you? Are you more sedentary? Maybe you're senior, so you would like a senior dog or a small dog who is just going to hang out, that doesn't require too much exercise, although every dog requires some exercise, so you have to be willing to do that or to find somebody who can help you exercise your dog. So yeah, doing research on the breeds, or being willing to find a rescue group. But also, sometimes you think you want a certain kind of dog. Like, I thought I wanted a golden retriever, but then I ended up falling in love with this other dog that was a who know what kind of a breed. And sometimes it's a matter of the heart. And you might walk into an adoption day with a rescue group or at the shelter and find a dog that is nothing like the dog that you were planning on leaving with, and you fall in love, and that's the dog who winds their way into your heart and your home.
That's right. One of the dogs I have, we went to the shelter, and Riley is who it ended up being with the dog I have. He wouldn't get back in the cage, and we're like, well, we have to take him then. So, and he's been a great dog.
Sneaky.
Exactly. He knew how
I'm coming home with you.
Exactly.
No choice.
He knew how to work it.
Yes.
So that was good.
That worked out for everybody. And
Exactly.
you fell in love, right? You never
Exactly.
regretted
Exactly.
it.
He's a wonderful dog.
You fall in love.
So when people are thinking about adoption, you have to obviously, as you were saying, have love and affection and take care of the dog. But there's also some expense that comes with the animal as well. And what can people expect with regards to expense when adopting a dog?
Well, first of all, while it is generally less expensive to adopt a dog, usually adoption fees are significantly less expensive than buying a dog from a breeder. It's really important for people to know that that's just one of the steps that's required financially.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, rescue groups generally don't want to waive the fee, or when they don't want to waive the fee, it's because they want to know that the person adopting this dog if they're willing to spend the money on adopting a dog, it's a little bit of an indicator that they're willing to spend money on the dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to vary by dog and whether or not they end up being healthy or not so healthy. Most dogs are really healthy, especially mixed breeds. You have a lot less of that inbred. A lot of the labs and the retrievers, they have a lot of hip dysplasia. Certainly dogs who come from puppy mills, which is like the saddest thing in the world. There's a lot of health issues there, so stay away from that for sure. But there's going to be general veterinary care. Which could be only in the hundreds, but it could end up being in the thousands every year. There's food, there's dog beds and crates and toys, and if you travel, there's travel expenses for your dog to stay home either with a pet sitter or go to a doggy hotel. So these are a lot of things to consider. We just recently purchased pet insurance again. We didn't have it for a long time because years ago when our dog got sick, it didn't cover what he was sick with. but the coverage has gotten so much better over the last 10 years, and pet insurance is really great. And so I recommend people at least research it. It might not be for you, but it could end up saving you a lot of money at the vet. And my vet recommends it highly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I know our program here, our rescue program, when we had a farm day, they allowed people who wanted to rescue animals to take the animal home with them overnight to see if they were a good fit. What do you think about something like that?
I think it's generally a great idea. I don't know if you're familiar with Best Friends. They're located in Utah. They're a wonderful sanctuary, and they are home to about 1,700 animals, all sorts of different kinds of animals, and many of them are adoptable. Not all, but many of them are. And when you go to visit the sanctuary, which is gorgeous, there's red rocks. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area. And you're allowed to have a dog come with you overnight, and sometimes it leads to adoption, and sometimes it doesn't. And my only concern is, when people have less than stellar intentions with a dog. So there's a little bit of that. But most people are really decent, and most people are only going to care for a dog. And it does give you an idea of whether or not this dog is right for you. And it gets the dog out of the shelter for the night, too. So overall, I'd say it's a pretty good idea, but not foolproof.
Now, I know you mentioned that you foster as well. Do you find fostering good for you, difficult? I think, for me personally, I think it would be difficult to foster with the knowledge that I'm going to be separated from the dog at some point. But what are your thoughts on that? I know that fostering is definitely needed.
Yeah, it's something that I only did for a little bit, partly for that reason. I mean, as soon as I had to take this dog back to the adoption days, I was heartbroken because I fall in love very quickly. I'm a helpless romantic with dogs too. I just fall in love. And but for some people, it's great because they know that they're doing the dog a really great service, and they know that if this dog is going to find a great home, and they were able to help this dog get adjusted to family life and have an experience of living in a home and get them out of the shelter and save their life, then it's great. There's some people who are just serial fosters. Mm-hmm. And another great thing about fostering is if you're not sure if you're ready to have a dog, it's a great opportunity for you to test the waters. Or if you have another dog and you want to see if you want to have two dogs, a friend of mine did that recently, and she thought they were just going to foster, but they ended up being a foster failure, and they ended up adopting the dog.
Yeah.
Or, a lot of times, people know that they have crazy work schedules, but for the next, let's say, 6 months, they're going to be around, and they can have a dog. So they tell a rescue group, I can foster dogs for the next 6 months, but then I'm going to be on location or something like that, and I won't be able to. So it's a great opportunity to help out and have a dog for the meanwhile, and then when you have to move on, the dog goes somewhere else.
Great.
Fostering a dog and getting rescue dogs is wonderful, but I know you go into schools and you do an education part too. What are some things that you tell the kids in the schools about rescue dogs and fostering?
Well, my books were originally created. My kids' books were created because I really wanted kids to have this whole idea of compassion and love for animals in general, but for saving a life specifically. And, as I mentioned, it's really about compassion and caring for another being, and to let kids know that there's an element of responsibility involved for them at a young age too. And one of the things I was thinking about, because my kids were young at the time, was my kids come home and tell me about stuff that they're learning at school. At least they used to. They don't talk to me much anymore, but when they were younger, they used to tell me everything. And they would come home, for example, and say, Mommy, there's a drought, we need to use less water. Just as an example, I live in Southern California where up until this week there was a drought. And kids pick up stuff and then they bring it home. So not only did I want the kids to be learning about this at a young age so that when it comes time for them to be choosing a dog, they're thinking about being responsible and being good pet parents, but also to bring this information home to their parents. You know, hey, Mommy, we're thinking about getting a dog. Maybe we should think about getting a dog from the shelter because that's something I learned about in school today. That type of conversation.
Great. Well, thank you very much for talking with us, Diane. This has been a great conversation.
Yes, it has.
And again, the name of the book is What to Expect When Adopting a Dog. And how can our viewers get a copy of your book?
Oh, well, thank you for mentioning it. It is the easiest place is Amazon. It's also available at Barnes & Noble and other e-retailers because a lot of people have a lot of different e-book places that they like to purchase. And for more information about me, and you can always click on my website to find it. It's on my website as well, DianeRoseSolomon.com.
Fantastic.
Yes. That's great. I learned a lot today, Gary.
Absolutely. Thank you
Well,
very
thank
much.
you both. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And go out, if you are going to adopt, we encourage you to adopt a rescue, a dog or cat, or any other animal that's out there.
Yeah.
If you're looking as opposed to buying from a breeder. And we'll be back with more here on Central Kentucky Talks.